O radiance of dawn, brightest of angels, messenger of morning, righteous and rising, bright light of truth, splendor of sun, brilliant beyond stars, imbuing Middle Earth with the grace of growth in all seasons. You are the illumination and the enlightenment of all time and the world's endless turning. You are the God, begotten of God, separate and self, Son of the Father, gift and blessing of high heaven, a child born who has always been, before beginning, beyond ending. But creation calls you. Your precious work, our fallen world, is in dire need. Send us the heavenly brightness from on high, the light of the Father, the light of the Son. Radiate our darkness. Redeem our lives. We have suffered so long, shrouded in sin, covered by the haze of ignorance and unknowing, enduring death's shadow and unending night. Now we hold the hope of salvation, a belief brought to us by the Word of God, which was one with the Father from the beginning, co-eternal with the Creator. Now the living Word has become sinless flesh, which the maiden bore, virgin and mother, as comfort and consolation to the world weary and heart heavy. God was among us, seen without sin. These two together lived as one, the Son of God and the Son of Man, a mighty child in all his majesty, heaven in harmony with all of earth. For this radiant riddle, this bright world wonder, we give great thanks to the Lord of victories, who gave us his Son, who was also himself. Oh, come.
I was afraid you froze there. I was like,
I did not. I'm not frozen. I'm frozen. I'm back in my mother's basement, you know, with all the mobile tech that I need to, I hope, celebrate. How are you doing? You're still in the same place. I'm so confused. I've driven all the way across the country again, right? What would you guys do without my mother's basement streams, right?
I don't know. It's pretty cool. makes you look like one of those guerrilla broadcasters, you know, in a mobile unit you're supposed to, oh my gosh, I sound like a total geek now. You're supposed to register with the FCC if you have a radio station.
Oh, okay. No,
you're a guerrilla broadcaster.
But we're just streaming. So VA Boston says Happy Advent. Thank you.
Happy Advent.
We are celebrating Advent today with some meditation on the poetry and the patterns. And this is, you know, of the many streams that I'm in that I wish I could sing for, this is one of them, right? We have the viral video that went around like 5 years ago, which I've got all my notes. And my mobile setup is not nearly as elegant as my home setup in terms of like where I can stack everything. What was her name? Melinda Kathleen Reese, right? Who was on a trip with her parents some years ago and wanted to test the acoustics in the churches that they were visiting in Spain.
Oh, gosh,
and
incredible.
If you guys have, we put links in the description of all of these things, right? When she goes into the church, it's the church in Montefrio, I can't read my own handwriting. Montefrio, Spain, and just to test the acoustics, begins singing O come, Emmanuel. And like, I remember being here at my mom's trying to say, listen to this is amazing. And, figuring out who it was who was singing it. She's since gone viral, right? And so you can get her records and things like
Yeah.
that. But, this sort of moment of this angelic voice simply singing the Advent.
Well, and it was multiplied. However they created the structure was a miracle. It's just miraculous because it sounds like there's a choir singing when one person stands in there and sings. It's incredible because it echoes, but it seems to echo up like incense going up, and only the sound waves are going up. It was really, and I'm not even live standing next to her when she's doing this. This is a recording. I can't even imagine what it sounds like when you're there surrounded by it. And you can actually feel it. You can feel the sound around you. It's incredible.
A beautiful image. Yeah, so I think her dad was doing they just recorded on a phone, right? So you're right. It's like, consider that is through the internet. But the reason that she did it, she was there on a choir trip with some friends, and then her parents and she did a tour around the Spain a bit. And they just walked in the church and they were like, oh, I bet it was like, oh, let's test the acoustics in this one, right? And so that's what she sang, and it was like, that's what it's meant to be like.
Yeah. And it was kind of fun to watch her too. She was like, what? Did I hear what I just thought I heard?
Right.
And she sings and stops and listens, and she waits for the sound to stop, and then she'll start it again.
Yeah, and you can see her looking around and just saying,
yeah, where's it going?
Where's all this song? So we're so used now, ironically, to people can only hear if you're like amplified electronically, that we've gotten used to this idea that the human voice can't do it without the assistance.
Yeah. Right.
And you're right. I mean, assistance, but it's in those older, and this isn't even that old a church. I think it's like a 17th century church. Yeah. That it's assisted by the actual architectural space.
Right. It's assisted by nature. It's not manipulated. It's not nature that's been manipulated to sound like something else. It's enhancing what you've already got. It's not making it warble. It's just sound doing its natural thing, bouncing off of the dome.
Well, I mean, it is artificial in the sense that the architecture is artifice, and so
okay.
In our McLuhan moments, it's stone.
I guess it meant unnatural.
Well,
which is natural.
This is our continuing meditation, right? And I'm actually, I've been feeling it. I hope you've been feeling it. I'm actually, getting happier and happier in our streams, right, in the Mosaic, because I think we've found our voice in a sense. But also, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, the world is finally catching up to what you and I and Mel and the poets that we've been working with over the last several years have been talking about, of our being in the patterns, right? I mean, Kiltz and I talked about that when she was on the Mosaic Ark, of how are we in the scanning? Like, we had a nice comment on our YouTube from last week. Someone asking, it's like, what does learn to scan mean? And it's like, I think that was our catchphrase all along, right? It's like, learn to scan. It's like, okay, so that we met the poetry, but now it's learn to find yourself in these patterns that we're participating in online, and find ourselves in that poetry. I think I have the title, the working title for my book on J.R. Tolkien. So it's going to be Servant of the Secret Fire, which hat tip to Vox for coming up with that as the phrase. It's the right Tolkienian phrase. Servant of the Secret Fire. Nice. J.R. Tolkien and the Poetry of Prayer.
Nice. I like it.
And recognizing that poetry is now kind of a verb, right? The reverberation of all of the patterns that makes up prayer. This is actually what we've been working about all along. We've been talking about all along in everything we've written in the Dragon Common Room. From the parody in Centrism Games to the children's book with Aurora Borealis, available for Christmas. If you guys haven't done your Christmas shopping yet, you can get these still, right? And then in Draco Alchemicus, and so much in Draco Alchemicus that we're doing is about song. Like, the characters are in the moment, in the singing, and we're trying to recover the song as it was sung for our Lord, as opposed to singing in the concert halls when it's about seducing the audience into some kind of.
It's listening for the song, instead of being surrounded by this cacophony of people trying to duplicate it, right, through materialism. I said
Well,
that
I
right.
mean, so we struggle, right? Because, having the insight to say what's right is different from being able to articulate it in prose, which is why we've
Yeah,
gone through poetry.
which is why we stop and think when we're talking, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But prose, and I've also been thinking, it's like we were, thinking about Mary Harrington's piece last week about the scrolling for the divine and saying, she's able to say it in prose, but we've actually been doing it. I've been doing it for decades in my, you know, practical way in my scholarship, but unable to explain what was going on. I just knew it was right.
Hmm.
And the sort of,
Just a feeling, just intuitive.
yeah, the intuitive, right? I do have a Myers-Briggs actual proper test. I'm INTJ, guys, and I said that all along on my social media and in my blog. INTJ, which means I intuit everything. Yes, I've watched you. I found all the patterns. I know exactly how you work. That doesn't mean that I know how to, use the rhetoric, which
Right.
is the
And now what do you
rhetorical
do with it?
persuasion part, which I'm weak on. Right? But the intuiting and finding the patterns and just going, I know this is the right direction. And it's through this liturgical patterning, which is what we're going to be talking about with the lyrics tonight, or this afternoon, the O antiphons and the Advent lyrics, as examples of this kind of theological poetry. Is she thinking, or is she? Yeah. You're just thinking, okay.
Just
You
okay.
know what this means. You've been working with me long enough now. I've wrestled you through. It's like, here, read this. Um,
I did read. Okay, I'll show
Good.
you.
What'd you read?
I did a
Oh
lot of reading.
yeah, she's okay. So she's done her homework. So I'm going to make
So
her talk. That's great.
I did do homework. I don't know if I can talk on it. You know, it's strange. A lot of the antiphons. I had to look up. It's funny. I had to look up what the word antiphon actually meant because I hear it all the time and I can see it in my head, so I know what it is. But if you asked me to define it, I couldn't do it. It's just a short sentence that introduces, I guess, a piece of music or a prayer. I think it's part of it. It's like an introductory. Yeah. So there was a lot of words just to say antiphon. Okay.
So you see
Yes.
why I need Casey, right? She's my translator.
No, because yeah, I need to actually look up specific words that are used that even I use or have heard all the time, and I already understand them, but I couldn't articulate them because I said, oh, I better look this word up, right? I've never actually done that. I've just seen it written, and so I know what it is on
Right.
site, but I don't know what it is. And same thing with Vespers and Compline. I'm like, I kind of know what it is, and I looked it up. Oh yeah, okay, I was right. Okay, that's what it is.
Okay, now it's your job to
And
explain to the
yeah,
people what we're talking about today, because I just said it in my way. Now you say it in your way.
okay.
I said we're talking about the
So
O antiphons and the Advent lyrics, and it's the poetry of
yeah,
prayer, and it's the patterning of Scripture. And Casey's going, "What's an antiphon?"
what's an antiphon? Yeah. So Advent is the roughly what 29, 30-day period before. Sorry, did I say that? I meant 2025. We're in 20. It's exactly
It's 4
25 this year.
Sundays, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's four
4 Sundays
Sundays.
before Christmas, which means it varies in length depending on, because Christmas is always the 25th. So you have to have 4
Right.
Sundays before the 25th, which means it's
Mm-hmm.
not a fixed number of days, which is why people get confused.
Right. Which makes this year unique. It's exactly 25 days. It's like the first of the 25th. So the first was a Sunday,
That's
right?
nice. My
So
Advent calendar is
yeah.
working, right? It matches the days of
Yeah,
the month.
it works this year. Right. So the antiphons they're groups of prayers that are sung. They're sung prayers, chants. Everybody knows what chant is because you've heard of, I can't be able to say, you've heard Buddhist monks chanting, right? Christian monks did the same thing, the Middle Ages and earlier. They chanted their prayers, and the prayers were mostly meditative. And the Advent antiphons are meditations, or you're just sitting and thinking about a specific moment in time in the life of Christ and in the life of Christ's mother, especially during Advent, because you can't have Christ. The Protestants are going to hate me for this. You can't have Christ without his mother, because this is the way God chose to enter the world. And during Advent, we meditate on the life of Christ and his mother from the very moment of his conception, actually right before it, even when at the Annunciation, because it's the Immaculate Conception. That was actually Mary. That's another thing people screw up. Mary was conceived immaculately in the normal way, but without original sin, right? When she conceived God, it was she was miraculously conceived, right? Because God said, you shall be the mother of the Messiah. And then she said, okay, be it done unto me according to your word, right? And at that point, then that's when she was conceived of Christ, and she was pregnant with Christ. So it happens right before and right at the moment of Christ's conception and until his birth. This is Advent. So it ends on the 24th, not the 25th. So the 24th, Christmas Eve. So the 25th is Christmas Day. So these meditations are on that period, that very early period in the life of Christ and his mother. And the antiphons are sung meditations, they're sung prayers, chants that are sung every day.
Okay, you use some other words like Vespers and Compline and stuff.
Yeah, Vespers just means evening prayers. So people would order their days around prayers, and the evening prayers would be, I guess, around before or after dinner time, and Compline was right before you went to bed. So they actually prayed around the clock. So you had your morning prayers, you had your afternoon prayers, you had your evening prayers, and then you had your right before your bed prayers. And some monks would get up in the middle of the night and pray then too. But I don't know if that has a name.
Matins. It has matins.
Yeah. Matins. Okay. Of course it does.
So Vespers is actually it's sunset prayer actually. So lauds is the morning sunrise prayer. The lauds are the praises, and Vespers is the sunset prayer. So it's sunrise and sunset, plus other hours in the day, which is yes, okay. But we're already probably going to confuse them if I start adding all of those in. Okay, and so you found out what these antiphons, these antiphons that we're going to be talking about, are chants that are sung as meditations when. During Advent, right? But there's a particular moment in the day when they're sung during Advent, and also a particular time period, right? Why we're talking about them now? This is actually day 3 of the antiphons of these antiphons. That they're. Shall I give a little of professor version of this? Okay.
Yes. It'll be much smaller than mine.
Hey, the problem with being an INTJ professor is you don't know what people don't get, and that's why I rely on my students to ask me the right questions, because I will not
proud to be of service.
Yes, thank you. I will not answer your questions if I don't know what they are, right? Which is why the chat actually matters on these videos. We actually want to know what you're wondering about. Here we go. So VA Boston was talking about, we watched the Polar Express last night, and one kid says Santa's bells were the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard. I bet they wouldn't hold a candle to the human voice in one of those churches. Indeed, right? The human voice. Yeah. Talk about. Remind me that I'm going to explain when the Advent antiphons are sung. But the human voice. When Casey was talking earlier about how it matters that the voice was simply in the stone church and amplified naturally, it is actually true sound. What you're hearing from us right now through the internet is not, right? It's mechanically reproduced something or others that are, I mean, and that all music now, I watched a good little YouTube channel once where he's talking about how recorded music is now all modified. Right, it's smoothed out. The episode was about how you'll never hear Dorothy Garland, Judy Garland's vocal range or sound the way she sings Over the Rainbow ever again, because all modern music is like they go through with the sound waves and smooth them out. It's like it's all airbrushed. All modern recorded music is airbrushed and completely. It's like never seen a natural face, never seen it.
You see, this is what makes me want to see opera live, which I have never have done before. I would love to, for that reason right there. You're hearing a real voice, and not an excellent facsimile, but still a facsimile of one. What does it sound live?
Right. Yeah. And it's like there's a massive importance to the idea that not only does God take on flesh, but he takes, I mean, it's like the word became flesh. The word becoming flesh is the word becoming, breathed. It's the spirit of in the old sense is the breath, right? The wind, the breath, the spirit in the old. Oh, and I do it again. I everything I say is like 18 layers down.
Because it's all in your head, and it's hard. It's hard to actually hone it down.
Yeah.
I know this woman is a walking encyclopedia. People, she's a series of encyclopedias.
Worse, I'm all the cross references in the encyclopedia.
Yes.
If I were walking encyclopedia, you get actual straight definitions. No, I'm all the references in the encyclopedia. I've completely adopted the Diana Bishop character from Discovery Witches, which we are now completely obsessing on. We decided, yes.
Oh gosh, I'm so obsessed.
That she ties together all the knots. And Deborah Harkness, you win. That is the most brilliant image for what women academics are really good at, which is putting all these threads together, right? That's what we do. That's our gift.
Yep.
We're not so great at straightforward explanations. Because it all connects. Okay.
Trust me.
So the natural voice, and that to imagine these antiphons sung in the period that we're about to talk about with the human voice, which is a chest voice. It's a embodied voice. It comes out of your lungs. It is with the beat of your heart. Dogs have different levels of bark because they have got different sized chests. This is my theory, and then they bark loud anyway. But like. Corgis are little bitty short legs, but they are huge chests, right? So they can bark at the cows. A trained voice like hers in that magnificent architecture fills the world. And we're so used to the electronic amplification of our voices, we don't realize how much power our incarnate voice has. So these are lyrics meant to celebrate the incarnation.
Yes. And a structure built to amplify it
in a church. Right.
Incredible.
Right. Okay. So a history lesson version. We don't know how old they are, these actual antiphons. They appear, they're referenced as early as the 8th or 9th century by Amalarius of Metz, who was one of the Carolingian liturgists, one of the first to talk through the symbolism of the liturgy. And he's writing in the 8th century, 8th, 9th century. We have them referenced in liturgical books from the 9th, 10th century on. So we know they're as ancient as we have liturgical manuscripts for, but they could be even older than that. It's
right. And the monk you just mentioned, it said that his source was an anonymous other person, and they're not exactly sure how old it was. So the earliest mention is 8th century, but probably could be centuries earlier than that.
Right. Yeah, he's 780 to 850. That's why I'm messing up on my dates. So 8th, 9th century. And what Casey just said, he's referencing somebody else. So these are mists of time chants, right? We don't know how old they are. They had to have been composed by somebody, right? Because they're, they're crafted. Nothing drops out of the sky except our Lord Jesus Christ. Everything else is written down by people. Okay. So they're that old. There seem to be originally 7 of them, and they're I have go to the second slide first. There seem to be 7 of them, and they are easy to remember if you go backwards with them. Emmanuel Rex Oriens Clavis Rodex Adonai Sapientia, sort of an acrostic with the first letter of each of the O, and then the first letter of each of the other ones. It's arrow cross, which this is the kind of thing that these Carolingian poets loved doing, which was putting acrostics into their liturgical poetry and their other poetry and stuff too. So that means I will be there tomorrow. Arrow, I will be cross tomorrow. And that's like in reverse, right? You're singing backwards through the list to the moment when he will be there tomorrow. Because as you said, they end on Christmas Eve.
That's cool.
There's so much cool stuff in here.
It's like hidden messages, even in the way they structured things. It's really massively cool.
Yes. It's so much. The thing is, it's so much fun showing you this stuff, because these are things I've been like obsessing on for some time. We'll explain why in a moment. I read that first lyric that I did. but it's like it's like Christmas all over again. I get to share the delight of the like with
Yeah.
kids, right? It's like, look, there's Santa, not Santa, but there's the Christmas tree and the lights, and this is our Lord Jesus Christ, and the kids are like, woo, right? Be like a child, hear it for the first time,
Yeah.
and feel all of these layers. Okay, so there's 7 of them, and they seem to have been sung at Vespers, which was the evening prayer office, as antiphons for the Magnificat, which I will let you explain. Starting from December 17th through the 24th, right? Or the 23rd, right? 17, 18,
Hmm.
17, 18, 19, 20,
Right.
21,
The
22, 23, through
23rd.
the 23rd. So it's the 7 days, 7 evenings before Christmas Eve, leading up to Christmas
Hmm.
Eve. I will be there tomorrow, Christmas Eve. And then, we all, Catholics, we go to midnight mass because it's the moment of midnight at Christmas Eve is
Yes.
the anticipation.
Anticipation.
Okay, so Magnificat.
Well, the Magnificat was Mary saying, accepting Christ and saying, "My soul magnifies the Lord, Magnificat," and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. So it's that part of the gospel where she's proclaiming this, and so that's sung on the 24th,
Well, that's sung
right
every
before
evening.
Christmas,
That's
right?
actually every evening.
Oh, it
Yes.
is. You're right. The Magnificat is done at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is it 3 in the afternoon?
Well,
It's
it's in
noon.
Vespers.
Noon. I
It's
forget.
it's every evening at Vespers,
Okay.
right? So,
I could tell you I could tell you a short story why I'm confused
okay.
about that. My husband is from Ireland. My first trip there was a long time ago, 25 years ago, and it was coming on the radio then. And he said, and it was like church bells, and they would stop everything and on the radio, and they would what would they call it? Anyway, it basically was Magnificat. It was the first part of it that they would pray. And he said, "Do you know what that is?" I said, "No." Which was hilarious because I was like supposedly this really serious Catholic, and he was just grew up culturally Catholic. I don't know what's that. I don't know because I grew up in Protestant
Right.
America. I don't know what that
Right.
is. But they do it every day at noon there.
Well,
So
no, you said
sorry, I
3.
just wanted.
What time of
No, I originally I said 3, but I think it's
what
noon.
time
They
of year
maybe
were
said
you
6
there?
noon. It's during Christmas. It was the week
When
before
does the sun
Christmas.
set?
Probably 3 o'clock. Started setting at 3 o'clock
It
there.
was at 3. I spent Christmas in England too, and it's the sun's setting by 3:30.
Uh,
So they're singing it around 3 because that's when the sun is about to set. It's Vespers, right? And
okay.
so in the summer, Vespers is later in the evening because the sun sets. The Northern Europe gets this wide swing of time from like
Hmm.
in winter it's like 9 to 3 sunrise to sunset, basically around that. Like you only get 6 hours or so of daylight in England at that time, so the day hours are squished together and the night is much longer. But that's why if you've only heard evensong or Vespers at Christmas, that's why it's so early.
Okay.
It'll be
Yeah.
later in the
Because you're
summer
way up north.
because you're way up north, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
Magnificat is Mary's song. It's sung every day, but therefore what the antiphons do, and this is, if you guys read Mary and the Art of Prayer, I go into massive mosaic detail about all of this. That the antiphons frame the texts. They're antiphons for psalms as well as for these canticles. The scriptural canticles are things like the Magnificat. There's also at Lauds you do Zacharias's Benedictus, and at Compline you do Simeon's Nunc Dimittis. Right. So
Mm.
there, and then antiphons frame those. They also frame the psalms, and they change over the year to, like, there's the things that are stable, like these canticles, and then the antiphons like make you think about new layers, because at at these antiphons, the Advent antiphons, we framing the Magnificat, which you sing all the time, but now they get special
Hmm.
frames, right? So
So it's like
mhm,
commentary, depending on time of year and I guess the gospel readings for the day.
right. This is why the
Okay.
liturgy, as the medieval liturgy, is so impossibly difficult for modern people to study, because it does this constantly, right? It's like you've got these elements of it that are they're in a pretty nice structure. It's a very regular structure in many ways, and you need to know the structure, like the hours and the how many different kinds of pieces you
Yeah.
have and stuff, but they change also to reflect the time. So you're always, there's the kairos chronos differentiation, right? Chronological time is our historical time, right? Our linear chronos. And kairos is this liturgical time that we're trying to talk you all into, saying this happens every year, but it's transported and layered by the repetition, and also by this sense that the liturgy is constantly participating in eternity, but also participated in by us now in time, over and over and over again.
See, you have to explain all of this to me, because I didn't grow up in a Catholic environment. This country is not a Catholic environment. And so I think what I've read this past year about people in academia is it's very difficult to discuss works of literature with incoming freshmen, because they have no frame of reference when you're talking about Bible stories. Now, if you want to talk about Bible stories, most Americans my age, between the ages of, let's say, maybe 35 and 60, I'm guessing, or maybe just 40 and 60, is that you might still have a frame of reference about talking about biblical things, but younger than that, you won't, because it's never mentioned in school, ever. And it's never mentioned in popular culture, ever, unless it's to mock it. So they don't have a frame of reference here. So when you're talking about all of these specific Catholic prayers that are done during specific times of the day, and that they change ever so slightly on every other day of the year, but they're still done every single day, that would have been very normal to somebody 200 years ago in a Catholic country. They would have heard it. They would have heard the Angelus. They would have heard the church bells, not just for Mass, but for prayers, that they were rung for them too, because that's the word I was searching for, was Angelus. So they called it the Angelus.
Yeah, that's
that
a different prayer.
Radio.
That's the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's supporting prayers for it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm screwing it up because it was during Advent. Remembering it. So I might add extra ones in there. See, I don't know. As I'm listening to you talk, I feel like somebody, like you're speaking English, and like I'm somebody who only knows about half the language. That's what it feels like.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is when we were trying to say, it's like the digital retrieves the medieval. It's like the medieval is vastly larger than people imagine. It's like, think about, it's like we've been living in this tiny little, constrained portal that everybody's been looking through, and we're trying to show you the world of the, this sort of the resonance of all of these references and images and so forth. And what's interesting is you're describing, it's like how bewildering it is. We do have the example of understanding what that's like. Our live stream, right? You know how to follow everybody's live streams. You know how to, I think the more I've been thinking about it, and since our stream last week, and sort of building up to this, if you are used to checking your social media and finding the animal videos, and looking at the memes and putting all these together, so you actually are practicing the kind of pattern integration that the medieval liturgy is structured like, right? It's like, it's an experience that probably makes indeed more sense to people now than it even could have when we were growing up. Because you have all of this variable, but and locally variable, right? The fascinating thing about the medieval liturgy is it's incredibly locally variable. That the whole,
it's very diverse
in the best way, right? The printing press brought standardization of all sorts of things for both the Protestants and the Catholics. So we think of the Protestants as, sola scriptura, and the printed text is everything. It's like, excuse me. The Catholics, from after the Council of Trent, do a similar kind of standardizing. So even modern Catholics don't know the range of ways that medieval Christians prayed. What I'm showing you right now is the printed version of Veni Emmanuel, which is the Latin version of O Come, Emmanuel. And that is, if people are worried about what we're talking about, the O Antiphons, this is what it is, right? The Veni Emmanuel, captivum sole Israel, qui gemet in exilio privatus Dei filio, gaude Emmanuel, nascetur pro te Israel, which is translated by John Neal. I'm going to write his name down. Again, we don't think about who did these, right? Somebody wrote it, It's John Henry Neal, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Oh, phooey. Where'd it go in my written
19,
notes? Right?
1910. Yeah.
It actually in the mid 19th century. Where did I write it down?
Oh, I'll think of some, one of the other writers here. Never mind. One
Here
of
it
the
is. Yes,
translators.
John Mason Neal. I knew that was wrong. 1861. And there's huge, because all of this stuff, it's like figuring out who made the meme, right? You see it on X a lot, and there's like, who
Yeah.
made this? And there's like, no idea. It's out there. Everybody knows it. The Veni Emmanuel, some scholarship, the Wikipedia entry, right? Some scholarship says, oh, it's 12th century. Oh, it's 13th century. Oh no, it's actually not evidenced until the 17th century, and it's Jesuit, right?
And I want to add that there probably isn't a Protestant or a Catholic anywhere in America that doesn't know this tune that it's to, and they have no idea how old it is. They have no idea what they're singing, which is fascinating.
Right. It's a very ancient
I didn't
chant.
know until I read this.
And it's probably, and it's Catholic. So there. Right. But
It
Neil
is.
was
Yeah.
Anglican. So it's, it's in our English version of O Come, Emmanuel.
Mhm.
Everybody knows it, right? It's like one of the few Christmas hymns that's still it's an Advent hymn.
It's an Advent hymn. Yeah.
That people still recognize, which is why her name. We can't. It's what becomes primary is the chants. You can't remember anybody's name anymore. Melinda, right? When she picked out to sing this in the church in Spain, she's just singing a chant she knows. She's not thinking, oh, I'm going to sing the 17th century version of the 15th century French tune of the.
Yeah, okay, I'm in a Christian church here. I'm going to recall something Christian, and she's saying that one, and not knowing it was perfect.
Right.
It was actually a perfect choice.
So that's how it's like, if you want to understand how they live in people's imagination and flow, we do it all the time. And again, it's like to make the medieval, I mean, bless their hearts and everybody out there who's trying to make all this stuff available, including me. But the medieval it haunts us. It's everywhere. It's always grounding everything that we're thinking and doing and saying and loving and being. And it's been excremented on, for the last several hundred years, as if it isn't real and is silly. And in fact, it's you are shaped by it ultimately. Well, one, because it's true, but in ways that it's, we're here on the Mosaic Ark to help show you it, but rejoice in it. It should be ours now, the world's now, right? O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. It's our humanity singing. It's magnificent.
Yes. Yeah, it's everybody. Because the sentiments apply to everybody, whether or not they feel them.
Well, the feeling, okay, so the feeling is, it's like, how do I feel faithful or something like that? One, sing, right? Scansion, learn to scan and sing. The primary Christian practice isn't, it's sort of, right, preaching, but the primary Christian practice is singing in praise of God. That's it, right? The earliest Christians, the reason we have the prayer schedule that we do of the hours of the day and such is referenced in Acts, that Peter and John go up to pray at certain times. It's modeled on the moments in the day when the crucifixion happens, right? From Christ is crucified at noon and dies at 3, right? It's like all of these anchors in the liturgical time to our lived time, recapitulated over and over and over again. I forgot what I was talking about. That's what the medieval means.
I don't know, but I wanted to say, that people don't realize that the importance of time on this until you strip all Christian reference from it and say, why do you think it is that Satanists hold black masses at 3:00 in the morning?
It's the anti-crucifixion.
It's the anti-crucifixion. That's why. So even when you're trying to upend Christianity and subvert it, you still can't help but acknowledge it.
Because it's the truth. We're just going to be, it's like...
Because it's the truth.
And eventually maybe we'll find the layers of poetry, the poetry of prayer to, help people. It's not an argument. It's a participation. And that's the point of the incarnation.
Yes.
That God participates in our breathing. and we sing for him. Okay, so so in fact, the the way this kind of liturgical time happens, because now that we're in the internet and in these streams and in these meme worlds, how all of these things travel and exist in reality, even if people can't name where they come from. You have some of the texts already, even if you can't name who wrote them or where they came from, because you have them in, like, she sang that song, Melinda sang that song because it's in her body, right?
Yes.
It is and the tradition is designed to riff off of them, right? O come, Emmanuel. It's riffing off of well, we'll show you, right? It's riffing it. The verses are actually paraphrases. So verse 3 in O come, Emmanuel is, O come thou Dayspring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night and death dark shadows put to flight. If you listened really carefully to what I read to start with, that was a longer version of what I just read, right? They're riffs off of the same antiphon, which is the Orion's antiphon, right? So there's this feels hard, but you actually are in it more than you appreciate, right?
Yeah.
So there's 7 of them, and we were inspired to do this episode because well, one, I'm obsessed with the O antiphons, and I was reminded how obsessed I am by the O antiphons by a lovely post on Substack, which I will try to remember so I can say her name properly, Amelia McKee, who does the Arts for the Liturgical Year Substack, so look her up. She's partnered with Robert Keim, who does the Via Medievalis, and they both have lovely prayerful meditations on the medieval art and liturgy that he writes. He's written for I forgot, I didn't write it all down, sorry. Look up Robert Keim and Amelia McKee on Substack, Via Medievalis and Arts for the Liturgical Year. And she did a really nice meditation on the meaning of the O antiphons a few days ago. She published it on the 17th, December 17th. So I was like, now we got to talk about them. This is great. I forgot what I was talking about.
I don't know, but maybe you can describe to people why they're called O antiphons.
Very good point. Okay. That's
it was really simple.
They start O.
They start O. Start the word O.
So maybe I should read them out. And some of these I found links through Amelia's excellent article, so we'll link that in the description. The first one is O Sapientia, O Wisdom. And I won't read the Latin because but anyway, the Latin matters in certain layers, but here we go. A wisdom that comest out of the mouth of the Most High, that reachest from one end to another, and orderest all things mightily and sweetly, come to teach us the way of prudence. Okay, so that's wisdom. December 18th, O Adonai, and ruler of the house of Israel, who didst appear unto Moses in the burning bush, and gavest him the law in Sinai, come to redeem us with an outstretched arm. December 19th, which is today. O root of Jesse, which standest for an ensign of the people, at whom the kings shall shut their mouths, whom the Gentiles shall seek, come to deliver us, do not tarry. December 20th. O key of David, this is O clavis David, right? O key of David, and scepter of the house of Israel, that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth, come to liberate the prisoner from the prison, and them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death. I love the key one. It's such a great, it's like the key image. Okay. December 21st, which is the one that the Dayspring chant is about. It's the solstice, right? So this is, it makes sense that this is a sun image. Oh, Oriones.
Yeah.
And the Oriones is multiply translated. In the when I read at the beginning, it was translated from the Old English as radiance of dawn, brightest of angels, but we'll tell you who that actually is. but it's sometimes it's Dayspring, or rising one, rising sun. There's a lot of variations on
It's
the Orieins.
yeah, the source of all light.
Right,
Yeah.
the rising, Orieins. I mean, that actually is it's harder to translate than some of the others, but in the Latin, O Orieins splendor lucis aeternae et sol justitiae, veni et illumina sedentes in tenebris et umbra mortis. So
That actually sounds beautiful in Latin.
yeah.
Yeah.
O Dayspring, brightness of the everlasting light, Son of justice, come to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death. Then December 22nd is Rex Gentium, O King of the Gentiles. O King of the Gentiles, yea, and desire thereof, O cornerstone that makest of two one, come to save man, whom thou hast made out of the dust of the earth. And the last one, which you'll now recognize, was O Emmanuel, right? So, O Emmanuel, our King and our lawgiver, longing of the Gentiles, yea, and salvation thereof, come to save us, O Lord, our God. So that's what they're because it's the
Yeah. They're all images of light and dark and just a strong desire for God. It's very anticipatory. They're very beautiful that way. And it's just it's like a pleading, we can't do this without you. Please come to us. Right.
Right. So Sophia just said, this is great. Praying the Antiphons for the first time this year together with our family, struck by their beauty. Lovely to know more. They are absolutely beautiful, and we're, no matter how long we go on right now, we're not going to unpack them as fully as Casey did note. So we're going to talk about one of the lyrics that's written off of. Actually, people like these so much they added more. Right? There's 7 that we have in this sequence, but the poem that you wanted to really concentrate on, which you told me about, so I will get to. It's okay.
No, it's okay
you do your homework. I'm gonna let you talk.
Just the way my conspiratorial mind works.
What you like this one? I think we should.
Yeah.
That they're the Advent lyrics that we're going to be talking about, which what I was reading from at the beginning. There are 12 of them, which is obviously more than there's these 7, right? So that as they did in the Middle Ages, when they liked something, they made more of it, right? So what I'm showing now,
like the Janus manuscript of Genesis, the Genesis poem.
It's like they're in the Middle Ages, nobody could say anything about Scripture that wasn't in Scripture. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me? Are you?
There are reams of stuff they said about it. Couldn't shut them up.
They never stopped.
They wrote plays.
Jordan Peterson has nothing on the entire Middle Ages. Just saying, guys, right? It's like, I've been reading about it. There was a review of his book in First Things right now, and I was looking at it, that this desire to participate in is the entire liturgy, right? There's more books out there on the medieval liturgy than pretty much anything else. And they're constantly doing this layered riffing on all of the imagery, right? So there's 7 antiphons, but as you can see in this manuscript, I went through Cantus, which is a database of medieval chant. Again, it's unfortunately one of the projects that has sometimes been mocked for where our tax dollars went. Our tax dollars went to a good place on this project because seriously, right? The Gregorian chant is worth preserving and making available on the internet, and the way that it is, if you go to Cantus database, you will see what I'm talking about, right? Your mind will be blown on how much we have of this kind of practice from the Middle Ages. This manuscript is from Einsiedeln in Switzerland. It's 14th century, and it has, I was rapid. I was like, it's so easy for me to just go like this and find stuff on the internet now. I'm just like, here's a good one that looks good, right? This is a 14th century chant book that is the O antiphons, but you'll see there's more than 12 O's, right? So it starts kind of in the middle of the page with that red O. So it's like halfway down, and there's the O, right? That one is O Sapientia, and then there's O Adonai, O Radix Jesse, O Clavis David. We go to the next page, O Orieins, O Rex Gentium, O Emmanuel, but then you get some more, right? So they kept going. O Virgo Virginum, O Gabriel, Nuncius, O Rex Pacifice, and there's a third page, O Mundi Domina, O Toma Didyme, O Jerusalem Civitas. And the Advent lyrics that we're going to be talking about, which we'll explain what are in a second, use some of those, right? Some of those later ones. But the Advent lyrics are actually older than this manuscript. So yet again, mist of time, everybody's doing it, and they're going to be creative off of the premise, which is these encapsulated meditations that then you can just endlessly unfold.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You're endlessly unfolding this and revealing more,
right.
more and more and more, right? It's almost like your brain's being opened up, right? Expanding, right? Your knowledge base. The more you think about it.
It's a wonderful image of our yeah. So what Amelia did in her lovely Substack meditation was look at the Stammheim Missal. She totally spoofed me so effectively because I was like, oh, the Stammheim Missal, it has the O antiphons, and she's like, oh no, sorry, and I was like, oh, that's great, it works, right? The reason it works is this book. You will all recognize, if you're Jonathan Pageau, longtime watchers, you will recognize this page. He used the portion of it, the central medallion of it, for his Symbolic World logo for years before they redid it and did the Mosaic dragon that they have now. We figure we're on the same route. That the Stammheim Missal, this page is showing creation, and it was made, the missal itself, let me go back. I did it again, didn't I? Stop me if I'm going too fast.
She knows too much. She's
trying to get it all in.
That information is trying to get out at the same time. Just gotta.
I bet there's words in what I just said that make no sense, like antiphon. What's a missal? Okay, going back to here with the Einsiedeln book. By this time, this is like, I think this is an antiphon, or I forgot to check. Medieval, the liturgy has two parts, the Mass and the office. The Mass everybody knows about because that's, you got days of obligation, you got to go and you got to hang out while the priest does his thing, right? The office is what actually takes most of people's lives in the Middle Ages, including if you're saying the Hours of the Virgin, which are Matins, Lauds, Prime, Terce, Sex, Known, Vespers, Compline, of this sort of structure with Psalms and Antiphons for Mary. The office is the sung part of everything, although you can have sung parts in the Mass. They need different books because it gets so complicated, right? And the missal is chants. This missal is chants for the Mass.
So it's a book.
Oh, so it's a book.
You
see what I do, right?
The faithful.
It's a book. Let's start with that.
It's a book. It's a small book.
It's actually about this big. I've seen it.
Okay. Yeah. But they didn't use it in the Middle Ages because they just mostly listened to the Mass and participated that way. But the Missal is a book that contains all of the parts of the Mass that the priest and the faithful say. During different days of the year, there'll be different readings.
No.
Okay.
You're right. It's a book. Let's start there, right? I tend to forget these things.
I thought that was a book.
You got that it's a book. And I actually saw it. So lots of links in the description for today. The Getty Museum owns this now. I have a fun backstory on this particular book because it was originally, back when I was in graduate school, I'm not quite sure when this changed, but when I was in graduate school and I saw in black and white some of the images from this book, the book was owned by the von Furstenberg family. The real, like, counts, right? Oh golly, it's a count. I've now forgot when it's in German.
I just remember the fashion house, Diane von Furstenberg.
Well, maybe it's the same.
But I think she married him. But,
possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Count von Furstenberg, I had to write to him, Mr. von Furstenberg, for permission to use one of the images in my dissertation, because that family still owned it. And so to get permission for, so it's like for permission for using the picture, you need to get it from them because they owned the book. And so they had the reproduction rights. They sent, in order to, this is great, and you can look this up on Wikipedia, to finance the rebuilding of their castle. Sold the book, the book, and the Getty bought it, right?
Okay.
So their castle looks nice, right? And the Getty owns the book.
She's writing to counts and castles. She has a very different life.
Hey, that's my one. I've had a few brushes with the nobility. That's my one with the Germans. That I got to write to the Count von Furstenberg and ask for permission to reproduce the image of the Assumption, which we'll get to. And anyway, so the Getty has owned the book, I think, since the 90s. I realized when I found out that it was there, and I'm like, really? I got it. I got the letter from the von Furstenbergs, one of the last ones probably. And the Getty, they had it on exhibit and it's probably still up right now, and in the exhibit on light that we raved about when we were talking about the astrology.
Yeah.
Open not to one of the pages we're going to show you, but to the abbot from Hildesheim who got the gift of the true cross. Right. So the Getty was not using the book in this instance to show anything about light and creation and stuff. They were using it to show the illustration of the actual relic that they were showing in the exhibit. So there you go. There's always more, right? It's like I didn't put those pictures in because you guys will never keep up. I can barely keep up with me. Okay, so this book, it's a missal. It's a book. It was made in the 12th century for the monastery at Hildesheim, which is dedicated to St. Michael. Amelia and Robert did a really nice Substack post on the St. Michael image from the manuscript. Look at that.
Nice.
The book itself is the chants that are needed at Mass. So it's only it's like a subset of things even for Mass, and the people would never have seen this book. This is a book.
Oh, okay.
It's not that big, right? It's maybe about as big as my notebook. Right. So, it's not that big, and it's for the priests.
Right. So that if you walk into a Catholic church today, they have what they call a missal, right? That has that kind of stuff in it.
Right.
That's where I'm getting confused.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are because the laity in the Middle Ages, the laity knew that they wouldn't know all of these chants because some of them were said quietly, right? And I need to study the missal more properly. I have a page towards the end of our slides to show you. It's showing the Kyrie and the Gloria, and it's notated, right? So it's a songbook. The liturgical books are infinitely complicated because it depends on how many pieces of what they put in each volume. Antiphoners only have the antiphons. They're not enough for you to be able to perform the whole office because you also need to know the Psalms, but you'd know that from a Psalter. There's also other texts that are like the Evangeliaries, which are just the gospel readings. Those often tend to be marked for the Mass. You will see why, if you get into this, the study of the medieval liturgy gets so daunting, because it's no one book contains absolutely everything that you need to know in order to do it.
It would be too big.
Yeah.
Right.
It's bigger than a book.
Right. And as you said, pointed out before, there are regional differences as well. So other regions might have more or less. Probably more, though.
So, well, usually it's like there'll be particular books that have the pieces that it's like if a script for particular performers, certain people need this part of it, certain people need this part of it, certain people need this part of it. The priest needs certain things to be able to say the Mass, but nobody else needs those, and nobody else gets to hear them.
Right.
The secrets, right? The quiet part. So this is the sung parts of the Mass, so it's not the quiet part. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm sorry, guys. I looked at the pictures.
I wonder if this is where we get the expression you said the quiet part out loud.
It's saying the canon of the Mass. It's saying the secret.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that, right? Because you have these expressions and these traditions and these songs like O Come, Come Emmanuel, and you have absolutely no idea where they come from, but they come from the Middle Ages. They come from Christianity.
Oh, right. Okay. So actually, it's like having a hymnal, right? The hymnal doesn't have everything in it, right? It's just, look in you might have the Bible. We're used to having like several books, right? You might have the Book of Common Prayer, which just has the prayers. You have a hymnal, which just has the hymns. You have the Bible, which has maybe the scriptures themselves. And the liturgy is a layered practice of using all of those pieces.
Yes.
And I've studied the office more
Right.
than I have the mass, so I'm bungling on exactly which books are used in the mass. Like there's song books for the mass that are called graduals, which include just the chants that are sung as you carry the mass. Oh, I can't do it. You guys, if I can't remember it all off the top of my head, and the thing is, I'm not actually a
Yeah.
medieval musicologist. I'm one of the rare breed of medievalists who try without actually being my primary training to figure it all out. And there are great books out there. Marco Fassler has done some absolutely magnificent books, but I can't even explain. I can explain to you things they don't know about where the chants come from and what the commentary tradition is, but there's layers and layers of the medieval musical practice that
Yeah.
I'm a laity.
Well,
I'm the laity.
What just popped into my head was, yeah, up until Elizabeth I got rid of it, but then it was brought back centuries later. The English Catholics used something called the Sarum Rite. So you had a completely different set of, I guess, additional prayers or chants that were associated specifically with that too. So that would have been different than the masses that were said in France or in Italy.
Sarum is Salisbury.
So
it's, yeah.
There's so much diversity there. So yeah, you can't have a book. That's impossible.
Right. There is no single book that contains the medieval liturgy. And the problem is there's no single book that contains it for a particular church either, because you have all of,
because they have their own feast days too.
Right. And that's it's like so I mentioned that this book, Stamheim Missal, because I think it was kept at Stamheim Castle. It has nothing to do with where it was made. It was made for Hildesheim. It has a particular focus on St. Michael's because that was the church that the saint that the church was dedicated for. And in the calendars, you can see localized things like particular feast days and so forth. Yeah. Okay. Mark Lefebvre saying, I only look at pictures. Reading is hard. Well, so, I mean, to be fair, okay, that's actually a really good point. That the reason I was delighted by what Amelia did with reading these pictures with the O antiphons is as I'm demonstrating, have not properly read this book. I've looked at the pictures the Getty has put online. As far as I could tell, they didn't have a transcript of it. And I didn't have time yesterday to read through the whole thing. I glanced at it and figured out what I was looking at. Most, even scholars don't do this properly, right? It's like you're suddenly in a world of how much of their practice can I actually access? This is my life work, right? Trying to figure out how to get us to a point where we can at least like peer over the edge at what this practice was like. But it's amazing what we've lost. Think about all of the churches that were built in order to contain this song, and we barely can remember a hymn.
Yeah. Right. Or if you remember one or two, that several thousand more are, I don't want to say they're lost, because I'm not sure that's true. I don't think it's possible to lose everything. Just find too many interesting things, like that portion of the gospel that was just found in Germany. That was like the year 300 or something like that. Crazy old, way older than they thought. And any kind of written portion of it would have been there. But as far as we know, they're lost, right?
Sorry, what's lost? I'm lost now. I know how you feel now.
Songs, all of these songs, all of these chants that the individual parishes and counties and countries, kingdoms that were there and then weren't there anymore, and then new ones would spring up, and then you'd have new traditions, or new points of reference and points of emphasis on the specific gospel readings,
right,
and the specific antiphons and the specific chants. And even specific ways of conducting your liturgy that might have differed slightly from your neighbors in the next kingdom. It's an incredible explosion of different manifestations of Christianity, of Catholicism specifically in Western Europe. That are they lost? I'm not sure. I think they may be hiding. Like the question I just asked a couple of minutes ago. I said, I wonder if that's where they got the expression, he said the quiet part out loud. people use that all the time because it's
Right,
funny,
right.
but it's directly related to the Mass. And it goes back a very long time. It goes back probably 1,000 years.
We so often don't know how old these tropes are, right?
Right.
Yeah,
They're
I was having
hidden.
a
They're there,
conversation
but they're
this morning
hidden.
about when breakfast in bed became a thing because it always seems nonsensical. Like, don't you have to get up and go to the bathroom first? And and it seems like it's an early 20th century thing, right? It's like, why would that be? This sort of and this goes back to, oh, guys, shout out to VA Boston. Her Substack, she's publishing right now, in serial form, one of her new book. But she did a really lovely little shout out to us from the Mosaic Ark last week, thinking
Yeah,
about
thanks.
how I forgot what why I was shouting out. So it's essay on comparing the present and the now, and our sort of access to all of this. That what we're doing now in this sort of, you're saying, is it lost? It's like the practice, the experience, it's becoming available to us again in the internet.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so, like, it's blessed, right? If
It's
this is,
incredible.
it's like
Yeah.
what we need to do is sing into the internet. We gotta learn to sing. We tried. I can't. You guys remember what I did with "Proud to Be an American"?
Oh gosh.
I oh come, Emmanuel. I can't do it. I can't hold the tune. Right? You've got to sing into the internet, and we do this. That's where it lives, right? It lives in us.
I'm curious. Sing it in Latin.
I can't even do it in English.
I'll bet you can do it better.
Dude, she's.
I'll bet you can. I just have a hunch.
This is
I have a hunch.
Casey's. It's the same. It is actually the same tune.
It's the same tune. I gave it a try myself this morning, but because you actually speak Latin and know how to pronounce it, and the
I
syllables
can't.
are very
No,
short.
I truly can't hold the tune. I can mimic it back if you've really gotten it in my
No,
head.
that's okay. I just thought because
I'm grateful for the trust, but it's just me. I
it's
know my
the
limitations.
language. The Latin sounds so much more easily broken up into shorter syllables than English to me. So I thought maybe it might be easier to sing in Latin than it was to sing in English. But that just may be me hearing it that way.
Right. So one, that the English is written to fit with the Latin tune. So and this will go, like, the deep structure of our learning to scan is English is written to fit with Latin tunes, as it were. Right? That our poetry in iambic pentameter is written to fit against tunes that go with Latin. Yeah,
Interesting.
and that's why our iambic pentameter is not actually a really natural pattern for English, right?
Oh, I thought you said it was related to breath.
It
We were
is. I
discussing it
think it is.
before.
I think it's heartbeat and breath and things like that. But English,
Yeah.
the way our prepositional phrases work and stuff, we default. I said this. I feel like I said this before. We default to anapestic trimeter. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even the mouse. Right? There's a trippiness to it, whereas that the sort of our sober poetry needs to go into iambic pentameter because it fits with the.
Oh, it makes you slow down and think about what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So if you all default to anapestic trimeter, you'll like our last week's newsletter, because we did our spider poem in anapestic trimeter.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Help the weave here. Variants. How we're living in the internet. Oh,
you live in the eternal now, right? That's God. That's the eternal present, right? So this is mimicking it, I guess, as I don't know. I can't say as best we know how. I think is it even accidental? I don't know. That all of this stuff has become available very quickly, all at once.
So so VA, thank you. She says the internet streams are crossing, weaving the patterns together and letting us see that they are patterns in the first place. She's really good at explaining this, better than I am. Okay, and the daydreamers is imagining what's going to happen when YouTube figures out how we're talking about missiles. Don't.
Yeah, not that kind of missile.
Don't. No. We've kind of been doing this all along anyway, because I've been doing my scholarship. James Joyce was out there writing Finnegan's Wake 100 years ago. We've been McLuhan says we're going to feel the effects of the new media before it actually manifests. The sort of desire of collaging, and McLuhan's putting all of the pieces together in the medium as the message, and the mixture of, I mean, Scott McCloud and his understanding comics and the effect between word and image. This has been coming for a while, right? The reason that I, as a medieval historian, who do not fit anybody's category of what history is supposed to be, I've spent a lot of my time looking at pictures. That's why I needed the Count von Furstenberg's permission for this picture. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand the music and the liturgy. In my world, in my academic world, musicology is a separate field. Art history is a separate field. Poetry and literature is a separate field. Old English is a separate field from Latin. I try to do all of it. I'm insane because I can see from my studies of wanting to understand Mary, like the incarnation, the portal through whom he comes into the world, it all has to come together because that's the way they were living it. That is our incarnate gift, right? This is the gift that we're waiting for at Christmas. Our real Christmas gift is that all of this comes together in this great, look at the word, I've got the creation image on, right? God there, Christ flanked by the seraphim with the 6 days of creation, and then at the bottom the expulsion, the red angel with the sword is throwing Adam and Eve out of paradise, and Cain and Abel, right? So on the one hand, we're in this creature, this amazing creature of time that God made, right, with the seraphim. The next picture is wisdom. This is the one that we can match with the O Sapientia antiphon, right? O wisdom that comest out of the mouth of the Most High, that reachest from one end to another, and orderest all things mightily and sweetly, come to teach us the way of prudence. That antiphon plays off of all of this imagery that comes out of talking about wisdom in the scriptures, right? And one of the articles that Amelia linked is this. Who wrote this? Oh, phooey. Rorty Kiley, and I've forgotten what his name is. The blog post is Rorty Kiley. It has a nice little history of the O antiphons. And he one of the things he shows is the way in which each of these little texts, these little texts contain cascades of all other texts. This is why it makes sense to put the O antiphons with these images from the Missal, because they're doing it too. Here's Christ being held by wisdom, flanked by prophets, and all of them are holding little banners that have the text that they say that go into this image, right? So to think in medieval terms, you're thinking orally, visually, you're thinking about all of these pieces come together all the time.
If you're holding the book and you're seeing the images and you're reading the words and you're putting the words together with specific characters, it's a comic.
It's a comic. It's a comic.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yes.
It's like their attempt to create something three-dimensional in front of you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. These are three-dimensional. These are like four-dimensional images, right? Of all time. So we have Sally saying, because of the deluge of information, what do you use to constrain and direct the addition of information to function in lived life? I like the medieval snails versus rabbits margins, but it's a briar bush. Yes, right? You're saying
that makes sense. Yeah.
I want all of you to become medievalists and participate in this because it's so much fun, but it is overwhelming, right? I'm going to get to the picture that I used in my dissertation, and I'll tell you why I needed that one. But the primary mystery here is the way all of this stuff is what McLeod likes to say is how the text and the images work together, and the meaning happens in the margins. So your marginal image is actually really good, right? It happens in the leap between, right? Between images, between here's a text, here's this visual image. You are then praying it in time, so it's embodied in your experience. You've repeated it over your lifetime, daily, yearly. All of these layers are constantly resonating out, right? So our image of Melinda, right, singing that song in the right, that's it.
Yeah,
it's the reverberation. So here in the Sapientia, Rorty Kiley shows he has 6 different texts, which I'll read to show you. Like you could pull all of these into this one Antiphon, right. So the antiphon again is, O wisdom that comest out of the mouth of the Most High, that reachest from one end to another, and orderest all things mightily and sweetly, come to teach us the ways of prudence. And then cascading together, 1 Corinthians, he is the source of your life in Christ Jesus, whom God made our wisdom, our righteousness and sanctification and redemption. From Isaiah 28, this also comes from the Lord of hosts. He is wonderful in counsel and excellent in wisdom. From Sirach, which is Ecclesiasticus 24, I came forth from the mouth of the Most High, the firstborn before all creatures. And that's wisdom speaking. Wisdom, the book of Wisdom 8, she reaches mightily from one end of the earth to the other, and she orders all things well, in Latin sweetly. Another from Wisdom 7, for wisdom is more mobile than an emotion, because of her pureness she pervades and penetrates all things. And then Proverbs 8, the Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. You can know for sure that artists that make images like this have all of that echoing in their head when they are designing these, which is what these images are trying to show you. This, like, they come with all of these references, all of the cross references, all of the previous expressions of it, and then make something new. There's no book like the Stalmheim Missal that I know of. It's as far as I know, it's completely unique. And yet it's folding itself into over and over and over again all of these cross references, right? So if you go through the book, you look in the Getty site, we have the Majesty. Here's Christ surrounded by the evangelical animals with prophets, right? Moses, Daniel, Baruch, Jeremiah. And so the prophets and the evangelists go together to give us the full image of Christ. These majesties are great because it's like, this is the revelation. This is, the king, the Rex Gentium, the king of the peoples, is shown. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I can't sneeze. Here.
Go for it. There you go.
Oh, blimey. Okay, so VA Boston says, the first antiphon is, O wisdom, perhaps because it is through wisdom that we shall understand and embrace the others. Very nice. And the thing is, if you start doing commentary on these, you realize why you never stop, right? It's like, wait, there's that layer.
Yeah.
It's, I think Amelia used the term, or maybe it was Amelia and Robert together, visual poetry in these missal illustrations, right? It's visual poetry, but it's doing what poetry does, which is one word carries this cascade of all of these other senses,
right,
and refers back to it.
It's a larger concept,
right? So you have to learn to think in this resonating fashion. So we have the Majesty, and then the missal. It has a series of images that are, in fact, from the incarnation, right? The life of Christ. So the Annunciation here, Gabriel with Mary, and then the prophets who are pointing to that mystery. The Nativity, so she's lying on her little hot dog couch, with the baby above her with the animals from Isaiah, an image of the burning bush at the top, and an image of the gate underneath her. So burning bush is Exodus, right? So Moses sees her in the burning bush, or sees the incarnation of the burning bush. The locked gate is Ezekiel. That's the gate through which only the King of Glory passes. So Christ passes through the gate that no one else has opened.
right?
I think there's also the Virgin with the unicorn there too. That's good.
Right. Yeah. The virgin birth images are very strong here.
Yes.
Right. Like a locked gate and a key, and
And Gideon with his fleece, right? So any of these, that they're showing you how the event is carried by all of these previous hints. And when we were riffing off of Campbell last week and saying he was being disingenuous about what he was actually doing, this looking for the pattern in the stories. I mean, it's like the primary place it happens is in scriptures. Like the scriptures point to themselves constantly. The Old Testament is such gloriously referential book, if you understand that it's constantly referring to the New Testament as Christians read it, and the New Testament is constantly referring back to the images from the Old Testament because Christ fulfills them. So it's like
Right.
the setup and the payoff, the redemption
Right.
is in Christ.
The
The
reincorporation
reincorporation, it's all very meaningful. It's all
of things.
constantly
Yes.
meaningful. So that here the crucifixion is doing the same thing, with like the guys treading the wine press. So that's another Isaiah image. The sun and the moon at the very top. Again, I'd have to study all of these. We get to things like, here's what they used as, Amelia suggested for the Orieins, that it's a resurrection image. Well, this one is lovely because it's showing the empty tomb with the two Marys come to talk, and the angel says he's not here. This one is much more gilded than all of the other pages. So the light reflecting off of it, so Christ has risen, right? And we have images of his
Nice.
rising, like David and Goliath, Samson defeating death, right?
Right.
And then the ascension. So here's Christ showing with things like the eagle and the chariot. We have Elias going up in his chariot. Now here we finally got to the picture that I wanted in my dissertation, which is Mary's Assumption. And this one is important because the Christ image has the Tota Pulchra S, Amica Mea Veni Coronavirus. That's one of the antiphons for the Feast of the Assumption. And that it's with the image of her being embraced by Christ, saying, we have Moses saying things like, honor your father and mother. Solomon saying, quae assista, quae ascendet per desertum. That's another Song of Songs reference. And what I was doing in my dissertation was taking just the use of the Song of Songs in the Marian feasts and showing how all of this layering happens. Since then, there's been a lot of, really excellent scholarship on this. But when I started my project back in the mid 1980s, there were some books out there that were trying to say that this was always imagery that had to do with the church. But I was saying, no, it's something else. There's some other kind of reality that they're accessing that I don't see in the modern Lumen. There's a new book on the Lumen Gentium, Chapter 8, Vatican description of what Mary is. The medieval Mary is participating in this kind of layering of reality as well, right? So our modern version of her tends to miss all of this. If you wanted to do Mary, which I've almost set you up for what you wanted to talk about, right? So
yeah, they tend to try to oversimplify it.
That we get to this, like, it's the word itself in the missal becomes, ornamented and such, and then realize that most of the missal is in fact songs, right? And this is where I realized that you're never going to see this page reproduced because it's these two columns of text, right? It's the Kyrie and it's the Gloria, and they're notated so that you can sing them. So that's the book, and the book itself is trying to participate in this layering in the way in which, as Amelia was showing in her Substack article, the antiphons are participating in this layering.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell them about Mary?
Yeah, perfect. Oh, yeah. Well, all the sticky notes I showed you for me highlighting different parts of the Advent lyrics from the different chapters.
Oh, we need to tell them what the Advent lyrics are. Tell them what the Advent lyrics are.
Right. So the Advent lyrics are similar to Genesis poem. That was not Genesis. It was a poem written in the early Middle Ages in England, Northern England, I think. And it was imagining reading in between the lines of the story of Adam and Eve.
That's what we talked about this summer. Yeah, the Junius.
And that's what we talked about last summer. So this does a similar thing with the Advent antiphons. It's not a reading of the gospel, but it's just extra poetic commentary on them. So
which fits with what, and the first one I read, I realized I want you to I want to spend our last half hour on this. So I'll tell you, the first one I read was the Orieins. That's actually Ela Arundel. In Old English, it's the poem that Tolkien used as the basis for his entire mythology. We can do a whole episode on that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
but when I gave them to Casey to read, she was like, I want to talk about Advent 7. That they're longer poems. So like Veni Veni Emmanuel is paraphrased short versions of the antiphons. These are like longer poems doing the same thing with the antiphon, riffing off of it. And the antiphon, tell them what antiphon this one is about and what you were struck by it. And we'll probably have to read some of it So this is number 7,
Okay,
right?
so this is number 7. Right, so Advent Lyric 7 is about the discussion between an imagined discussion between Joseph and Mary, and I think it must have something to do with medieval plays about the same topic. And I'm
This
going
is
to try
older
not
than
to.
all those plays, though. That's really, it's really,
Oh,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
that
It's
interesting?
like you're thinking
Okay,
like the Corpus Christi plays, and those are
yeah,
later. This is several centuries earlier than those play texts. Yeah.
interesting. Right. So yeah, they would have these plays that would in the Middle Ages about different parts of the Old and the New Testament. So this is very similar to that, and as Rich just pointed out, it predates them by centuries, but it's discussion between Joseph and Mary, and when Joseph is saying, "What am I going to do? You know, should I divorce you out of shame, or should I just take the hits and be humiliated for the rest of my life?" And she says, "Oh, you don't need to worry." And she calms him and says, "No, the angel of the Lord came to me," and you know the rest of the story, right? So it's a dialogue between Joseph and Mary. Um, One thing I noted in here that was that the Babylon Bee got in trouble a couple of months ago for making a joke about Joseph, right? Being shocked to find out that his wife was going to be perpetually a virgin after Mary was born, and people were like, "I'm not reading them anymore."
The Babylon Bee.
This was on
Yeah.
X. Yeah, they were so furious. They said because they thought it was mocking the virginity of Mary, and I says, well, it's more like making fun of Joseph,
Hmm.
which also isn't right. I love Joseph too, right? But so what was interesting about this lyric, this Advent lyric number 7, was it's the dialogue that supposedly the Babylon Bee was making fun of. I don't know if they had any knowledge of this before they did it. I suspect
Probably
no,
not.
because you have to be a medievalist to know this. But I mean, I've never seen it before this week. But so that's the dialogue, and it continues. It continues the theme throughout all of these what they're called the lyrics. They're poems, um, poetic commentary on the days of Advent. It continues on the light and dark theme, a lightness theme. So I did. Let's
Well,
see.
shall we read it? So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So the antiphon is one of these additional ones. It's not of the 7, and it's, "O Joseph,
Mm.
why did you believe what before you feared? Why did you believe what before you feared? Why indeed? The one whom Gabriel announced would be coming, Christ, is begotten in her by the Holy Spirit." So that's the text that it's based off of. And then, as you
Mm-hmm.
say, the Advent, I think it stands out because it's the only the only one of these. It's a dialogue. Excuse the
Yeah.
telephone. um,
Okay.
we got an angelic message coming in.
That's the Babylon Bee calling.
So, yes, it's like, how dare you? How dare you? So this it's a dialogue, and you want to read Mary and I'll read Joseph?
Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm first. Okay. Okay. There we go. Oh, my husband Joseph, son of Jacob, descendant of David, kinsman and king, do you mean to cast off our love, unravel our vows, untie our oaths?
I'm deeply grieved. Our trust is torn. Without warning, my honor has fled. My reputation is spoiled, my dignity undone. Because of you, I hear harsh words, insult and sorrow, accusation and scorn. Everyone bears me the gift of abuse. Care is my constant companion. I cannot escape my shame or flee from my tears. Only God may heal my heart's deep sorrow, bring comfort to my wounds, my woe. O Mary, my maiden, my young virgin.
Why are you mourning, wounded with sorrow, crying this lament? I've never found any fault in you, any crime or cause for blame. You've done nothing wrong, yet you suffer. This wretched state, twisting words as if your life were tormented by some strange sin.
This wicked conception is the source of my shame. This pregnancy has been nothing but trouble. How can I battle slander, struggle with woe? How can I answer my endless enemies? Their hateful words are like daggers in my heart. Everyone knows that I gladly received from the temple of God a clean maiden, pure and unstained. Yet now this is undone. Your virtue unmade is in some unknown way. It does me no good to speak or keep silent. If I speak the truth, then the daughter of David must suffer the law, death by stoning. If I keep silent, concealing the crime, then I am bound to bear the burden of whispered perjury and malicious scorn, loathed by everyone, accused by all. narrator. Then the maiden unraveled the riddle, unwound the mystery, revealing the wonder.
By the Son of God, the Savior of souls, I speak the truth when I say to you that I have never known a man's embrace or accepted any loving arms on this earth. But a visitor from heaven appeared to me in my own home where I was pure and innocent. The Archangel Gabriel came to greet me, granted this privilege, saying that heaven's spirit would illuminate my body so that I should bear life's lasting glory, God's bright sun, the power and Prince illustrious, unending. Now I am God's immaculate temple, free from sin. The spirit of comfort, the heart's healer, has lived in me. Cast off your cares, set down your sorrows. Give thanks to the Lord's magnificent Son, that I have become the wonder of women, maiden and mother, virgin victorious, and you, his father in the eyes of the world, so that in him the prophecy is at last fulfilled.
So now
That's
you
quite
can
a dialogue.
comment on it. No, there we,
All right.
okay.
So I highlighted. So again, I want to repeat. So all of these Advent poems, these lyrics, were focused a lot on light in the darkness. That Christ came into the world to be the light, to fight the darkness, the demon of darkness, basically. And which is manifest in our sin, right? And that we're enslaved to it, in fact, and we need him, and we need his light. We need his light to chase away the darkness. So I highlighted this. Part of Mary's speech says, the Archangel Gabriel came to greet me, granted this privilege, saying that heaven's spirit would illuminate my body so that I should bear life's lasting glory, God's bright sun. So here we have another light image, and God's going to illuminate her body. In other words, she's going to be infused with light, and this is how Christ is conceived miraculously, right? It's from light. So what I immediately thought was, oh, the Enlightenment was a subversion of this, right? Because she is illuminated, she is enlightened with God. Literally, light is put into her, right, with God. And then I remembered that the Masons were founded in Edinburgh, Scotland, in a place called Mary's Chapel.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's the oldest one in the world. It's what do they call it? They call it Lodge Number 1, right?
Lodge number one is in Mary's Chapel? Oh my gosh.
Mary's Chapel. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. And if you go back to the earlier ones, which I don't think we didn't go over, but so Advent 1 talks about crumbling structures. Advent 2. Sorry.
So the Advent lyric, the first one is on the O King of the People, which has a meditation on the cornerstone. Yeah.
Right. And it's and it says, but we live in a world of rubble and wreckage. I love that sentence, because we do. I mean, they felt it even back then, right? Everything seems to be crumbling. Nothing's new. Now we need our creator, our craftsman and king, to reshape the structure and restore the hall. Not the Masonic hall.
You're doing a major Kairos element on here. I'm here going, God, everybody needs to understand these are in the Exeter book, and it comes from it's from the 10th century, and what Casey's doing is showing you how it's actually prophesying the effect of the Enlightenment, and I'm like, woo. You're not wrong.
That really just did pop out of me. So Advent 3, the Advent lyric 3 is Christ the world, right? That's right.
That one's on O Jerusalem, city of God Most High. That one, right? So I had marked these. I wanted to read these. The translation that we're using of the Advent lyrics, these are originally in Old English. It's Craig Williamson's poetry. So it's the cool poetry that you're getting is, it's both in the original, but it's also his translation, right?
Right.
The 3 is great because it's the lyric is, the antiphon is, O Jerusalem, city of God Most High, raise up your eyes to heaven and behold your Lord, who comes now to release you from your shackles. Right. And then the lyric itself, this one's short enough to read. I'll read this one too. If we read them all into the internet, then the internet becomes filled with light in a good way. Right. O vision of peace, holy Jerusalem, highest of thrones, finest of cities, fortress of Christ, homeland of angels, where the souls of the righteous rest forever, gathered in glory, surrounded by bliss, You are a city with no sign of sin, no touch of torment, no glimpse of crime. All evil is exiled beyond your borders. You are a vision of peace, a place of hope, holiness and joy, as your name promises. Look around you now at the wide world, the roof of heaven, the catch of creation. See how the King of heaven seeks for you. It's dressed to Jerusalem, right? Walks away from his high home, comes down to his worldly cradle to be born a man. You are the home where his heart wakes, as the wise prophets predicted his coming, proclaiming this joyful promise, the birth of Christ, bearing comfort to you, the best and brightest of cities forever. Now the Christ child is come to ease the torment of Hebrew suffering, unmake your misery, unlock your chains, loosen your bonds, and bring you a blessing, knowing the hapless heart needs the gift of grace.
Right. There's so much image of light and dark, but also of cities crumbling and beautiful. Right. And it's clear that Mary is the door through which God comes onto earth. Right. So that's why I thought it was, in hindsight, kind of obvious that the Masons wanted to call, their Enlightenment project Mary's Chapel. And I'm not sure if it was mockery or if they were trying a bit of magic. Maybe it was both.
One wonders, right? Because a lot of what people are worried about right now in terms of, sexuality, right? And the ways in which it's transformed by science, way our architecture is and such like that. All of it's you can often find references of this allegedly kind of thing in the Middle Ages, and then people leap over the fact that it's all been reframed, right? So it's interesting. You can make an argument. Is the Enlightenment simply the realization of the coming of the light into the world? It's like, no, I think it's actually they're actually secularizing and trying to say, that priestcraft is all deceptive, and we in our scientific illumination will create better structures, and I mean the Masonic temple stuff is straight up all of this imagery.
And it's
inverted,
and
for sure.
And Mary Shelley's New Prometheus comes to mind.
Yes.
Were they really fooling anybody? This is a very educated and obviously really smart young woman, 18 years old, 19, writes Frankenstein, the New Prometheus. The fact that she named it that and showed that it was actually a horror story, because were they really fooling anybody by changing, trying subverting Christian culture when they were doing it?
It felt just as blasphemous as the stuff. It's like, you're worrying about the Babylon bees, the people's response to the Babylon bee. I think people did know, yes, and they're mocked now.
They had to know,
for being so. The blasphemy was real. People protested against it at the time. Freedom of religion and freedom of speech were very useful as a way to cover for this kind of effect.
Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, it's sort of like, did the Masons?
That's another topic. That's another MA topic.
Did the Masons? Yeah, we have a lot to do. A lot. There's
no way they didn't do it on purpose.
They must have done it on purpose.
There's no way, because they wanted to use temple imagery. They've been using Solomonic temple imagery from their inception. Right. So that's why I said, was it mockery or were they trying magic? And when I say magic, I mean that. I mean, I think they think something supernatural happens when they use Christian imagery and words and subvert their meaning. I do think they do have ceremonies. I haven't seen them because I'm not a Mason and I'm a girl, and they don't allow that.
They do have a women's auxiliary.
A women auxiliary, yeah. But I bet it's not the same. So the Masons are still around. I might have mentioned this before in another Mosaic Ark. If you drive around the United States and you go to these really small towns, every single town has a Masonic hall in it. And some of these towns, it will be the biggest place in town. It's bigger than any church. It's bigger than the bank.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that, right? I mean, physically, it's imposing. They don't have, as far as you can tell, a lot of sway there. Other places like Boston, they do. In Washington, D.C., they definitely do. And I know that for a fact. But
the Masons. Well, we did look at
yeah.
those layouts of the city.
Hmm.
Um,
But they have young and active members. It's not a place for old men wearing funny
right.
hats. There are places of influence still, in places where it counts.
Well, this has gone dark. We were supposed to be
Well, of course it
talking
has,
about
because we're
light.
bringing the light to the world, right? The darkness will not. It's going to try to overcome it. It can't,
Yeah, this is
right? So those are
very
the images of
topical.
light and dark again.
So what I'm thinking about is like to set all. I mean, what's funny about it is if we set all this up and say, medieval Christianity was this full of pattern and wisdom, and we've shown the wisdom, right? And the effect of this being in the pattern. What we talked about last week was the way in which our participation in the internet gives us a sense of reality of these patterns in the way that our poetry does too, right? As we're writing our poem, and we were joking, it's like things happen. It's like these poets, these ancient poets, writing the Antiphons, putting all of this imagery together. Medieval Christianity grows out of this layered symbolism. It's not symbolism is
Mm-hmm.
not quite the right word for it, because it's a naming pattern that is anchored to reality. Symbols, I mean, in the Jungian sense, the archetypes think they do exist in the collective consciousness or something like that. You're trying to explain that phenomenon of how the reality comes out of the recognition of Christ is light, right? That's not a symbol. That's the reality.
Right.
And but flip that over, and the internet is full of people convinced that the Masons are controlling everything because of their symbol magic.
Well, I think the point of the Mary Chapel was they thought they could,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're still trying. They can't, but that doesn't stop them from trying, and that doesn't stop bad things from happening. And I'm thinking of the de-Christianization of the West. That's a very bad thing.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing the effects of that, and we're living the effects of that now, particularly intensely over the past 80 years, or no, let's say the past 100 years, because of all the wars.
Right.
Well, the never-ending war, singular, it's the same one.
Yeah.
Still going on. Erdogan wants to reestablish the Ottoman Empire, just so you know.
Yeah,
they
erase. I mean, the reset to before World War I, right?
Right. Yeah, he actually mentioned World War I. We want to relook at World War I. What?
Well, I mean, so if you undo World War I, you've undone. I mean, the destruction of the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The German Empire was fairly new at the time, but it was.
Are the Habsburgs back on top then?
There is one of the Habsburgs. It's like the Count von Fürstenberg made one his missile back, right? You mean talking about, like, if you saw this book and all its chants, and you say this is straight up a magic book, right? You use these.
Like
it's like we sort of joke. I mean, the Dragon Common Room is kind of a problem joke in that sense. It's like, are we dragons as fantasy, or are we dragons as the creatures that praise God? And
right. Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
I'm the good witch, which is why I'm so irritating. If I were bad, I don't know. It's like I sure hope I may I be a good witch, a weaver, a good weaver of tales. Petition St. Lucy. Yes.
That you're Minerva McGonagall.
According to Grok, right?
According to Grok, yeah.
Anyway, there is Edward Habsburg is on X, right? And he has some fun jokes about, it's like me. who yeah, is there anybody out there that might be the secular king? And he's like, well,
yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I did see that one. Yeah.
There's
as a
matter of fact.
Oh, that was funny.
So I'll say VA Boston saying C.S. Lewis had hope come into darkened Narnia with clear-eyed Lucy, whose name means light, Lucia. Thinking about the Francis, we talked about this a few weeks ago with the little icon, the anime icon of Lucia. The desire for light on the internet. I mean, it's like if it's an anime, maybe the only thing that can make it in the internet are these, anime characters. That is the way in which the symbolism travels. I mean, one of the things is once you've sort of created a visual rhetoric, you can recognize this iconography, even though this book is unusual in its construction of the pictures and such, but it's using a repertoire of images that replicate too. So, we're with the anime Lucia and the memes and everything. We need to meme the internet better with our light imagery, the true light.
I think Gab was trying to do that. It was trying to invite people to train its AI.
They have been, yeah.
Yeah. It didn't work.
So, well, that's an interesting.
It was terrifying.
We're sort of in the footnote part of the discussion now. Why didn't it work? Right? How can we praying for
Sabotage?
so Advent 1? Remember, Christ already was born in Chronos, right? Chronologically, we're in AD 2024. Okay, so yes, I know that the dating is like coordinated a little off, whatever, right? We're in the year of our Lord 2024, so in chronological times the birth has happened. The Advent we're hoping for is the second coming as well, and it's also the light coming into our hearts, into our we properly are temples of the Spirit as human beings, and that we were talking earlier about our incarnate reality. Somehow we are in the internet, in this media, which is like books, which travel without our bodies, is like the radio and the television, which have sound and imagery. I'm not. Books can be spell books of magic as well as missiles. So the medium itself, I'm not sure is all, it's always the problem of the Tower of Babel, but I'm not sure the medium itself is the problem. It's the effects of it on us, which is going to always be the situation since the fall.
Well, it highlights our need for living this life in a constant state of conversion, which is why you would call for the light to come into your heart again and again and again. And you can't stop until the last moment of your life. And then if you're real lucky, you go straight to heaven, and you're there. You've got the light. You're with the light. You're in it. But while you're here, it requires constant conversion and constant vigilance.
And the way we do that is in constant prayer, right? That's in fact the monastic tradition was one of singing constantly. The book that this is made for a monastery, so they can sing the mass pieces, and the singing. If we started with our thinking about singing that song into that church, which then I was delighted that Melinda is singing into the internet, because her voice was so beautiful, and she was so delighted by the effect of her voice.
Yeah,
that it went wonderfully viral, and it's like, okay, great, everybody is now listening to "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel." I was so happy that Christmas, because I was like, I'm going to play this like over and over and over again, and the internet is playing it over and over and over again. We sing into gotta learn to sing. We sing into the internet. We tell our stories into the internet. I think Gab, I respect Torba, and he's obviously a better businessman than I am, so all strength to the project. But there's I've recognized in my recent scholarship, I'm so much more Franciscan with my desire to be in the world and preach in the world. And we do have a Pope Francis, right? Maybe it's not an accident. Maybe we are being pointed to pay better attention to what it means to be in the cities, be in the world, and be Christ in the world. And we've said this a lot in our own, in Mosaic Ark, in what we're trying to do in our poetry writing. As you've just said, it's constant, and it's now, and we are the light and the salt by way of our presence here, as much in the internet as in our daily lives.
Yes.
See, I think so. We've got some chat going on here about how they're worried about The baby eyes of anime are pure evil. Anime is pretty flat. It's good for a flat medium like the internet. Still has some aspects of the deeper symbolism. The baby eyes are straight from hell. Mark, screens are light. Jonathan Peugeot pointed that out. Very not good. When off, they are mirrors. Right, but the thing is, all of our we're back to the problem of iconoclasm. Are we in the media of statues and pictures, or or are we in the media of pure words on a page, which
all of it together.
All of it together.
Words and pictures, and also it's a mirror whether it's on or off, because we're putting stuff into it. We're putting ourselves into
Right.
it when we write comments or we produce content like this.
Right.
Right. That comes from here, and here, and now it's on there. So it is a bit reflective of who participates in it. So you could be looking at your own reflection and everybody else's, or just somebody else's, if you're just passively reading it. But it's an interesting tool, for sure.
I mean, the problem, the O antiphons are directly about the problem of the internet, because they were directly about the problem of the incarnation. And the internet is not incarnate, and yet neither are books, right? They're at least they're physically there because they're made on animal skin. To think that the internet is in fact only disembodied, that's not true. I mean, it's this another thing that we've been researching a lot for the poem. It's metal. The alchemical part of our Draco Alchemicus is recognizing that these mirrors, these light, these images, it's not disembodied. It's like anchored in all those servers, all of those underwater internet, the cables that carry all of this conversation, all of the mining that has to happen so that we have the metals. I mean, what we're doing in the internet is very like what they're doing in making these books in the Middle Ages of, precious metals. It's gold, lapis lazuli. The blue in these books is, ground up stone, right? So the medieval...
It's why it's so brilliant 1,000 years later.
Right. The medieval books are like our motherboards.
They are.
See what I just did there?
You should have had that image.
Well, I've got the page now, which is showing the virtues, I think. Temperance, justice, strength, and prudence, right? And it's like we in our incarnate, the temptation that Satan always gives us is you will be like gods, and the sorrow is we miss out on being what we actually are made to be, which is artists.
Yeah.
Or, as V.A. Boston puts it, we are walking icons, or perhaps walking stained glass. When dark, we reflect the world. When filled with light, we reflect heaven.
Oh, that's sweet.
Or rather, we reveal heaven. I'm tearing up now. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, who mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. Rejoice. I think we have now, I've earned the hat.
Aww.
Make Christmas great again.
Nice.
So everyone, Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining us in our Advent meditation. We will be back for an evening stream on New Year's Eve.
I think
because
so.
Whoever does anything on New Year's Eve, I've never done anything on New Year's Eve except not be able to stay awake. So we will be doing I don't promise to stay up till midnight at any time zone. But
It have to be 11.
I was thinking
every single year.
We'll do it our usual time, right? 8 p.m. right? So,
okay.
Anyway, so everyone, may the Lord come have a very Merry Christmas. Rejoice in the presence of your families. Sing, go to Mass, and thanks be to God. Thank you all for being with us this year as we've sailed through some pretty stormy waters. I mean, we can think about this for our New Year's Eve stream. It's like,
Oh yeah,
what
it'll be a doozy. Show up.
what have we just gone through, right? But for right now,
Yeah, what was that?
oh come.